Hey everybody, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Frank.
and we're going behind the headstock today with former ex Gibson employee and old friend Mike Lawson, and we're going to talk to Mike Lawson about his career at Gibson and dig in deep on the Les Paul Classic, so stick around.
Go Behind the Headstock with Kevin and Frank, two ex-Gibson employees talking about guitars and the guitar industry with an inside perspective.
All right, so we're here with Mike Lawson. We're so glad you're here joining us today. You know, we spent years together working at the Big G, so welcome. So, hey, remind us and tell our viewers here, give us your backstory. How did you get to Gibson, and what did you do during your time there?
Well, I had moved to Nashville in '91 to not be a musician. I wanted to be in the publishing side of things. I got into music publishing a little bit, but it was a fast way to make a slow dollar. I ended up marketing and publishing a software product called the Entertainment Source Library that was a legal contract collection on disc. And I had started these forums on CompuServe for the music industry, the first music industry online stuff. And as the software was starting to get popular, but not enough for me to invest in a new programmer to take it into the Windows world, I sold the rights to Mix Magazine, Mix Bookshelf, and those people in San Francisco, because they were my biggest customer. And I was literally packing to move back to Florida to go back to playing gigs every week, like 6 days a week. And there was an ad in the paper for a marketing associate. And I applied and I called and they called and I got the interview, and they had me down for the interview. And I said, guys, listen, there's a moving truck coming in 48 hours. So if I'm the guy, I'm who you want. I'm the guy you need to hire for this. But you're going to have to tell me now so I can cancel this truck if I'm going to do this. And they hired me. So I started work there. That was right around the end of '93 sometime. Q4, as I recall correctly. And I went to work at the factory in the marketing department, and it was a mess. It was chaos. It was a mess.
Right,
but I worked
the 100-year, right? The 100
yeah,
year
but we'll talk about that 100th year. And I asked Walter, but Walter Carter was the historian there, and he got the gig really because he was hired to put that book together, the 100 Years of
100
Gibson.
years. Yep.
And I said, how do you know? So Gibson's history of keeping like track of serial numbers and ledgers is really sketchy. How do you know? He goes, it might be the 100th year, it might not. We basically needed to find a year. Henry wanted a big milestone. So I did a lot of research, and the oldest instrument I could find that he manufactured and had a date on it was a mandolin from 1894.
Yeah, we had that in the archives.
Right,
yeah.
So we decided that was the 100. That was the first year. Okay, here we are.
Hey, Mike, quick question though. Did you get to skip the entrance exam test?
No. I had to take the computer test. I did not have to take a urine test, but I did have to take the computer test,
Gotcha.
which I passed. Apparently,
I'm so old. Mine was on paper before they had computers. I had to take that thing, a printed copy of it.
Oh my word, man! Oh
yeah,
I can't even imagine. That was a strange test, as I recall. Something
sure was.
Straight out of like Lumen Industries or something. It was,
I remember
crazy.
One question: what are you least? Honest, hardworking, or loyal? I'm like, which are you least?
Yeah.
I'm least. I picked most honest every time. I always picked honest, whatever it was. It's like circle B every time.
Yeah. That's great.
That was the strangest. Yeah. And I warned people about that after I took it, who were coming to apply or getting the job. I was like, you're going to have to take this thing. I'm not even sure if they read them. Just, you have to take it. And so, yeah, good luck on that one.
I never knew if there was a key, the answer key. I never saw it if there was.
I got to see. I got to see my results.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah. They kept so Tracy, who was in HR at the time. I won't say her last name. She was awesome. Yeah, she showed me my exam because I was curious one day, and she basically said, "What Henry looked for was your masculinity score."
Really?
Yes, and he liked to see a low masculinity score, which, probably what you and I think about masculinity probably meant something else on that test. It probably meant you followed orders or you did what you were going to say that you did. Who knows? But I remember I got to see the results of my test. Yeah.
Maybe you looked at that like independence or whatever,
This may give you some insight onto that mindset. Our first sales meeting, and we used to have a regular sales meeting at this place over behind what was a Holiday Inn or something then, and a Doubletree off Elm Hill Pike, this meeting center. And the sales meeting, the first one.
Yeah, I know where
remember
you mean.
those?
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah.
The first one, he ordered copies of 3 books, gave to all of us and all the salespeople, and demanded we read them all before the sales meeting. And I will never forget this, because when I saw the 3 books land on my desk, I went, this guy is a psycho. And they were The Art of War by Sun Tzu,
Mm-hmm.
The Prince by Machiavelli. Those were the 2. There was a third one, and now my brain escapes me. But they were in that line, and you're like, okay, so The Art of War and the ends justify the means, basically an amoral kind of philosophy. And so that was the thing I found distasteful about there. But I want to talk about the good stuff that happened and that was fun, and all in spite of that, because, for me, landing at Gibson, getting that job was like getting to work at Wonka's chocolate factory. It was magical for me in spite of all the stuff. And I was lucky to be there at a time where he wasn't quite as crazy as he got. Right. I was there at a time where he was, still on the edge and doing wacky stuff, but nothing like what came later. Right. And so we actually got to do some really cool things when I was there. And it was a different era and time. I was in charge of all kinds of fun stuff, from getting guitar photos shot to when entertainment relations would propose an endorsee, it would come to our department. My boss, Richard, he'd like look them over, go, Michael, what do you think of these? And I'd tell him what I thought. And then my job was usually to find the instruments for the ones we desired to sign, and literally go back in the factory and pick out the guitar for somebody. How cool is that when you're
That's super cool,
26 years old, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To have Phil Taylor from Pink Floyd's, he's like Gilmore's guitar tech since the beginning, call you and ask for parts because they're on the road.
Right.
How cool is that? I mean, you can't put a price on that. So I think a lot of people stuck around, and maybe not so much now. I don't know what it's like to be there now. Well, a lot of us stuck around back then because there were all these other like ancillary cool things to love about being associated with it. I got to design the ads that went in the magazines. I got to, hire Henry Diltz to do the photography, or go hire a local photographer and do the shoots, or just all these fun, creative, exciting things that I had the energy and impetus to do back then, because I really, really loved the brand. I really loved the guitars, and I loved being around them. I loved the smell of the rouge on the buffing wheel. I loved the smell of the paint.
Yeah. Right.
Back when I was there, the factory was not this clean, wonderful looking hospital room it is now. It was sawdust. Remember, it was sawdust everywhere. It was a fire hazard.
Oh yeah, they used to smoke right in the break room, and right outside the break room was the paint booth.
Yeah, and we smoked in the hallway.
Right, going in, right.
Yeah. smoke in the hallway, smoke in the break room, and then over at corporate, Henry built a smoking room for everybody. It just
smoking room
awful.
was the best place to be. You learned all the good gossip at the company in the smoking room.
The best gossip from the ladies on smoking.
It was fun. Those times were great. Back then, because like you said, Mike, lots of stuff was happening. We were doing NAMM shows. We were having parties at the custom shop with artists, and stuff was fun, man. I got to meet Johnny Winter, and it was cool.
Yeah.
Being, like you said, I grew up playing when I was young, and my dad was like a big Gibson guy, and my first guitar he gave me was his Gibson SG.
Wow.
Where I traded for a hardtail Strat, but that's another story.
Dude.
But yeah, it was a Bigsby, so I couldn't deal with that at my young age. But anyway, just being around those guitars and and wherever we went in the world, what do? I work for Gibson, and people are like, oh.
People knew,
they knew. We were, Kevin, we were all over Germany and all over places, and we had a Gibson shirt on, and Henry would like say, "Hey, don't wear that stuff out," because you could, get targeted as an American.
Right.
So he used to tell us like, don't dress in Gibson stuff because people know you're an American.
Well, that's a whole other story. Well, I got, we didn't have a lifestyle brand initiative and all that then. So, I mean, I'm the guy who got the denim jackets made. I'm the guy who got, at least if they came from Gibson USA.
Hey, I have a 100-year denim jacket still.
Me too.
Yep. I got one of your jackets.
On me, but, I got to make probably 3 different types of denim jackets during that period, maybe 4. T-shirts. The first T-shirts I did were the 100th anniversary. On the back, they said "Go Gibson" on CompuServe because there weren't URLs, so I put us on CompuServe in like 93, 90, right at the beginning of 94. Like right one of the first things I did when I got there was start a CompuServe for us, and our go word to find us on CompuServe was "Go Gibson," and that was awesome. On the back of the guitar, the T-shirts, and we had hang tags made. For the stores that said "Go Gibson" on CompuServe to explain.
That was the first hashtag. You invented it.
Yeah. It was crazy. I mean, we were doing some crazy fun stuff before the internet stuff. Like the first year and a half or so I was there was just at Gibson USA. And during that time, I mean, the list of artists is insane. I can't even begin to describe. I got to hang out with Pink Floyd in 3 cities. And that was insane. And that happened. First, they came to Nashville, and I brought Tim Rennick, their other guitar player, to the factory, and got him some weed, and it was great. And then, like, they call me on a Sunday, and they're like, "Hey, we're up in Columbus, mate. You want to come see the show?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's only 5 hours. Yeah, I'll be there."
Hey, was that when they played Vanderbilt?
Yeah, there was, and that was a great show.
Yeah, I was there for that too. Yeah,
wasn't that good? And then I the third and final time was they were playing the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis, and I had a meeting at CompuServe scheduled the day before, and that was in Columbus. So I had the Gibson van, I had it full of guitars to take up to Pink Floyd. I had to go to a meeting in CompuServe first, and the night before, CompuServe canceled the meeting.
Oh, jeez.
Now, this is the only thing I ever did quasi-shady. And I finally told Richard about it 25 years later. But I drove from Nashville to Columbus, so I would have a receipt from a gas station in Columbus, Ohio. And then I took a left, and I went to Indianapolis. And I went and hung out with Pink Floyd for 2 days.
There you go.
Because, come on.
Yeah. It did the company good for that, right?
It did them great, and the CompuServe thing wasn't that necessary of a meeting, and I knew that if I had said Richard to cancel the CompuServe meeting, that he would probably be like, "Well, you can't just go hang out with Pink Floyd," and I was like,
"Stay here, stay home."
I'm just going. If I get fired, I
You
get fired.
didn't cancel it, You didn't
Yep.
cancel it. They did.
It's great.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, and that was the craziest thing, because you guys remember the Chet Atkins SST solid body classicals, right? They made a hollow one that was real ornate. I'm forgetting the model number, but it was a lot.
ARCE.
Right.
Had the floor delay on it.
Yes. Yeah, it was nice.
And they were like $5-6 grand, right? They were really nice, really expensive. And I took one to Gilmore. I had it signed out, permission given away. Tate took it to him, stood on the stage at sound check, handed it to him, said, "Man, we want to give you this." And he looked at it and went, no thanks. I was like, what? And he said, because the Chet had the fake sound hole
right
on the classical, and he liked that because he said, and literally says, "Well, I like to play this because from a distance, looks like I'm playing a classical guitar, so I'm just going to stick with that." It's like, man, must be nice. And I dishonestly went to Columbus first, but I gave that guitar back. All right, I came back and I put it back into inventory. So, I'm not shady. I was just like not gonna hang out with Pink Floyd.
right
Yeah.
So,
I remember
that's
Joe
awesome.
Satriani gave us back a Steinberger.
yeah.
We brought him a Steinberger. That's when I met Mick Jagger down there in the city. And he played it for a while, and he said he couldn't get used to the no headstock. He loved the trench trem, and the guitar played amazing. And he said, "I can't get used to the no headstock thing. I'm out of position. When I look down, I don't feel like I'm in the right spot."
Got it.
But he sent it back. How many people ever gave stuff back?
Hey, I had Alex Lifeson send back a Supreme.
Really?
Just said, "Nah, it's not my thing." And
Yeah.
then they did the whole thing over at Custom Shop. They stole them away from us, Frank.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because Henry set us up as competitors
Mm-hmm.
in a kind of a graceless way. And so USA was a competitor of Epiphone, but Epiphone was the only company in the world authorized to make exact copies of our guitars, and set us up as a competitor, which made it difficult. And then Gimbar is really kicking into gear down the block at the new Custom Shop, right? And so my job at Gibson with Richard, we have one prime directive, all right? It was stay in back orders. That was our job. Keep the guitars in back orders across the board. You want a bonus? Keep us in back orders. That's how that happened. So we kept them in back orders. Now, we still needed to make and sell these guitars. And there was this guy, God, I wish I could remember his name because he was delightful, that used to come down from like Virginia in his pickup truck with a U-Haul trailer full of maple billets, wood.
Mike Hill.
You remember him? Yeah, that was him. Right?
Dean
And
Hill,
so
him and his brother Dean and Mike Hill, they were the flame maple guys. Yeah.
Man, Mike would show up. Thank you for helping me remember his name, my name. That's why I couldn't remember. And he'd show up with that U-Haul trailer, and he'd pull up right outside of the wood area, what used to be the wood area at the factory. And they would meet him out there, and we'd start pulling wood out, and he'd be like, "Yeah, look at this, look at this." And next thing I know, here comes Gimbar and his goons. I'm like, "That's our wood. Hold on."
Yeah.
And I remember big cigar. My guitar sells for 4 times as much. I'm taking that. Yeah, there's nothing I can do but watch Rick's guys haul off half our wood. So we stayed in back orders. But Frank, where were you at during those days? You were over in.
I was at Tobias. I went back to Steinberger in '92. Steinberger had moved down to Nashville, and I got the opportunity to go back. They needed help. They didn't have a lot of people who knew what to do with Steinbergers. And I had worked there in New York. So I went back there 92, 93. I took over Tobias. And I went to California. So I didn't come back to the plant till like 96.
That's why we didn't really run into each other much, because you were out in California, because I knew your name from them, but I didn't really see you.
Right. I went out there, and then we moved Tobias back to Nashville too.
Right.
And I did that for a couple of years. So about 96, I came back to the plant to USA as the head of quality control.
And that's when I left.
And
that is right when I left.
They had me move back there as quality control then.
Well, that makes
sense.
First
time you left, didn't you come back? You came back, right?
I came back for 2 weeks in 2008.
When we were in the Dust Tiger phase.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What a time to come back.
Yeah, it was getting really crazy by then.
It
all boiled over in the Firebird X was the last straw,
Oh, wow. Just Frank, it was only 2 weeks in there with those meetings, but in the ones I was in and our interactions, I remember thinking, you poor man, this guy is such a dick to you, and you're just trying to do whatever he wants to make these guitars the way he wants them, and there's no thanks.
And still function. Yeah. There never was. The thanks I got was, okay, we don't need you anymore. So I look at that time, Mike, as I tried to champion the brand of Gibson because I just loved it so much.
Yeah.
And we'd put up with whatever he came up with. I'd try to find a way to do it. I mean, I made pick guards with magnets on them and, all kind of different stuff. We went above and beyond and kind of trying to protect the brand from him, really. With kind of our
at times, yeah.
Yeah, we would be like, because I remember going into those meetings and he would spout out so much stuff. I'd have a big list after the meeting and I'd go back and we'd have a meeting ourselves, the recap. And we would say, all right, we're not doing this. And there's no way we could do this. All right, we'll do this one. We do this one. We try to find stuff that we could do that was feasible within the workings of the plant and try to make
no budget.
Oh yeah, none. Zero.
No budget, no nothing. Yeah. Anytime we tried to buy something, I could get that in China for $10.
Oh yeah, for 10 cents. Yeah.
Yeah. It was always ridiculous. Yeah.
When I came back for 2 weeks in that 2008, I laughed so hard because the How to Work for Henry manual was presented to me again, and it had the same travel policy in it with the same per diem for like 25 years ago.
Oh yeah,
like $28 or something like that a day.
A day, 20, total.
You could eat in Europe for $28. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just insane stuff like that. But in spite of it, I mean, look, my job was to try to make the dealers happy, and they hated that man. And I'll tell you, the day that I got the gig, my first day at work, and this was real scary and ballsy, but I got a fax at Gibson from Hartley Peavy.
Oh, boy.
And it said, hey, Mike, congrats on the gig. Good luck. You're going to need it. I've never seen anybody in the music industry, with the exception of maybe Bob Bull, the former head of Fender, piss off more people in the MI trade than Henry Juskowitz. He faxed me that.
Day
Gibson.
one. Yeah.
Day one.
Wow.
Yeah. There's been a couple of great quotes. The Mike Tobias one still rings true. When they got let go from his contract, they interviewed him at the Tennessee, and they said, what's it like working for Gibson? He said, it's like hitting yourself in the head with a hammer. It feels good when you stop.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a famous
Spot
quote.
on, man. Look, I made some of the best friends, right? Long-term friends, real friends, not like just artists and stuff, but I mean like the people at Gibson that I worked with, and especially during that particular era for me, were just great. They made it. Most of them made you want to go to work and hang out, and it was cool. It was a different vibe. It was musicians in the factory for the most part, building these and putting them together. And on, at lunch, they'd be out in the car smoking a little weed and go back into making guitars. And we had the Roach Coach come around and bring us.
Oh yeah, the Roach Coach.
Remember the Roach Coach? Bring us food, and it was just a different ambiance, different world than what it became. So I think I was lucky to be there before it buttoned down.
we were all in the same foxhole, right? We were all fighting for survival in the foxhole with each other, shoulder to shoulder, right? So
we
we
loved the
built bonds.
guitars.
We built bonds together because we all wanted the same thing. We all wanted to kick ass and make great guitars, but we were in a foxhole fighting all these, you never knew what was coming at you day to day, right? So
Never.
you learned how to be soldiers together.
That's a good way to put it, because when I left the company, I remember Gypsy Carnes saying, "You're going to do great in California, Mike. Gibson was your boot camp."
Yeah, right.
Like that was almost 3 years of some pretty basic training. Okay,
We got some heavy duty boot camp, no doubt.
Well, I had I look back now and I look, I'm still 33, 34 years of going to NAMM shows, and I look around at the people who are still there that I knew from the 90s from Gibson, and I see them at other companies or now retired, but just some of the best salespeople, the best marketing people, the best product people, builders, all of these folks, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful that I have my name associated with the brand. I got to help put a couple of cool guitars on the market. I got to make the Epiphone Jack Cassidy bass happen when it almost didn't. That was, do you know that story? Because
No, tell the story, because I love that bass.
That's a crazy one. So I am a big Yorma and Jack fan and Hot Tuna fan and Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead. That's all my jam, right? And in fact, I recorded with Yorma on the album I'd started working on before I was at Gibson and finished when I was at Gibson. And Yorma and Jack were at this kind of place in their career where they were, touring around in a van with a trailer. They weren't, in the tour bus like they are again now. And so they were reachable. They were agreeable to do things like clinics and stuff. And so they were heroes. So of course, I can work with my heroes. Yeah. So I'm booking them to do clinics. And Yorma is kind enough to promote the Nighthawk for us, which was, a hard sell at the time.
Yeah.
And the SST, which he loved and he still plays today. Every show just about. He loves his SSTs. I brought him his first one back then. And so Jack was kind enough to go around with those 400-pound Les Paul standard basses we were selling.
Oh, yeah.
Remember those Les Paul standard carved top basses that weighed like 15 pounds? And Jack
wound up making a lot of them at Tobias.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, right.
We were building them over there, yeah.
Well, Jack didn't much care for them, but he was doing me a solid, and he was doing me a solid. But he had been playing the Les Paul bass, the original Les Paul signature bass, and he said, "Mike, what I really want to do is modernize this thing, and so what do you think?" So I kept pitching it like every week to Richard Head at Gibson and bringing it up in meetings and dropping hints left and right. And finally, this was late 90, sometime in 90, early 95. And Richard says, "Michael, if you bring that up again, you're fired." And he was serious. And I was pissed. I was like, you know what? I don't care. I would rather be Jack's friend for life than stay here where I know I can get fired anyway. So at lunch, I walked out of, you remember the factory had the lawn out front, little lawn, right? My office was right up at the front. I walked out, I stormed across that lawn, and Epiphone was right next door.
Right next, yeah.
And I walked right into Dave Berryman's office, true story, pounded my hand on the desk. And I said, "Looky here, man. Jack Cassidy's a damn legend. He's a hero. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hot to the Jefferson Airplane." We're just ranting and raving. And he wants to do a signature bass, and he wants to do it from the Les Paul, and I'm just spewing it out. So I'm like, if I'm going to get fired, I'm going out in a blaze of pink glory, right? Then he goes, "Really? That sounds great. Hey, Rosenberg, get in here." Rosenberg comes in, Jim Rosenberg. I give him the whole spiel, and they were like, "Yeah, let's do it. When can you get him out of here?" I'm like, "What just happened? What just happened?"
That's great.
Right?
Well, think about it. At that time, Epi didn't have a lot of basses.
Oh, and now it's their not only best-selling in history, but longest running continual production base in
Been
the
around a
history
long
of the
time.
company.
Yep.
Over almost 28 years.
Yep.
Now, so that happened because I was, a young, hot-headed, fan of Jack's, and it was a good idea. Damn it!
Yeah. You know what? When you show somebody you're serious and you fight for something and you believe, they believe.
Well, Dave and Jim weren't like Henry at all.
No.
They were total opposite,
And I was like floored. So like I walked back over to my office with this grin, like, well, and I said, Richard, I'm not ever going to bring it up again because Epiphone's building it.
What did he say?
He just stood there and went, and then he turned around, walked in his office. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I called Jack and I said, Jack, the Epiphone wants to do it. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, they want you to fly out. Can you come out next week? I need you to spend some time with JT Riboloff. And boom.
And bring your bass.
And here we were. And then the rest is history. And then they came out. And, they came out after I left the company. And I remember telling Jack, all I want is one from you signed when they come out. That's it, And it took him a couple of years, and he finally got me one.
Cool.
So we're at the Shoreline Amphitheater, the Further Festival, the first one in San Francisco, and Jack and Yorma are playing, and Yorma says, Mike, look, I know you don't work there anymore. I said, yeah, it's been like, 3 years. I know you don't work there anymore, but I can never ask Jack to do this for me because he'd never let me hear the end of it because I've been giving him some crap. But he's getting a lot of love, man. He's getting posters and magazine ads and clinics, and I'm seeing him all over the place with these, and I'm a little jealous, and I can't tell him, but I want to do like a Yorma Kalkinen 335, but Riviera with Epi. We'll do American Hardware and red, and we'll call it the JA, so we can't say Jefferson Airplane. He's got this all figured out. And I'm just laughing. So I'm like, I'll work there, but yeah, I'll call Rosenberg for you. I did, and they made a limited run of those. Yeah,
I remember.
And then he says, but you're not gonna have to wait 2 years to get one from me like you did Jack. No, I waited 3. It took him 3 years.
Hey, I remember. All right, now you just jogged a memory. Was it Yorma who brought his 335 into the repair shop, and Roger Fritz was trying to repair this 335? I think the story was he got really high one night and tried to route a
Bob
Strat.
Welch.
Huh?
That was Bob Welch.
Oh, okay. Tried to route a Strat pickguard onto his 335, and Roger had to restore it.
There was a 345,
Okay.
and Bob and I have been friends since '91. And long story short, he moved to Nashville, and I was over at his house one day. I'm working at Gibson, and one of the things I remembered about Bob Welch was that he always had a lot of great freaking Gibson guitars. Every shots you saw of him, like he had Futuras, he had double pickguard Les Pauls, he had white Les Paul custom. He had all kinds of guitars. The L6S, Deluxe, whatever that thing was. It's all these great Gibsons. And I said, Bob, whatever happened to all these great guitars? He goes, man, Mike, heroin was a hell of a mistress.
Ooh.
And he says, but I got one that I'm kind of embarrassed to show you, but, I'm almost glad we did this to it because I probably wouldn't have it anymore either. And I played it on 3 Fleetwood Mac records. And he pulls it out, and it's just the husk. I'm like, what? I'm just laughing. And he's like, well, we had a few vodka gimlets and God knows what else after a show, and we thought we were just going to make the world's first Gibsocaster. And we took a Dremel tool to the shape of a Strat pickguard, thinking we were just going to drop it in.
Right.
Frank, you got to be thinking, I build guitars.
No.
You're crazy.
Frank, it was a mess.
He went right through it, right?
Yeah, cut right to the top. And so we did it. I said, Bob, I'm going to get this restored for you, but we're going to get to do a website article about it and, make fun of you a little bit because it's kind of funny.
It's a great story.
And so you can still find it online if you Google Bob Welch, don't drink and Dremel. And,
that's right.
and you can find the before and after pictures. The guitar is now, I donated it to the Musicians Hall of Fame.
In Nashville?
Yeah. When Bob died, I inherited all of his equipment, all of his gear, including the guitars I gave him from Gibson. So I'm glad I gave him some really nice ones. And we got that. Of course, I got that restored guitar, and I just felt like it didn't need to be in this room of 80 boarded guitars where no one's ever going to see. It needed to be on display. And yes, Roger Fritz and the other guy, I'm having trouble remembering his name now, did all the work on it, restored it so good that when Bob passed, I had to take all of his instruments with his wife to Gruen for appraisals for the estate or something. And George comes out with the appraisal, and I read, I go, well, it's pretty good considering it's been retopped. And he goes, what? What do you mean it's been retopped? Like,
he didn't know.
Yeah, he didn't know. So George Gruen did not know that thing had been retopped and painted. That's how good a job Fritz did on this thing. And he takes the appraisal away, and he comes back, and he drops it down $3,000.
Yeah. Yeah, you just jogged my memory of seeing that guitar on the bench down in the repair shop at corporate.
Oh, it was a mess, man. And I mean, yeah, it was a mess. And they kept the top. Roger might have it still. I don't know.
He probably still has it.
I lost touch with Roger. We reconnected a few years ago, but it's been maybe 10 now at NAMM when he came out with the. He was doing the Kent guitars. He was trying to bring back.
He was doing some Kent stuff. He was doing like a Dominator amp copy, and he had Fritz Brothers still.
Right.
Yeah, I hadn't seen him in a minute.
We had known each other from Mobile, Alabama. That's how far back we had gone before Gibson. But yeah, so that if you're in Nashville at the Musicians Hall of Fame, there's a permanent display for Bob of the guitar because it was used on 3 of the Fleetwood Mac albums. Mystery to Me, Bare Trees, and one of the others. Mystery to Me, Bare Trees. Oh, Heroes Are Hard to Find. Or Future Games. Sorry, Future Games, the last one. And so it's on display there. I got to take Mick Fleetwood down to see it. It was just a treat to get to do that for Bob there.
That's cool. Really cool. Yeah, that's super cool.
So,
all right, well, Mike, since we're talking about guitars, I reached out to you initially because there's a lot of talk online about the Les Paul Classic model, okay? And the origin story and what happened through the years. And even when I was there, people would ask us all the time, why is the Classic different than the Standard? And there's been times over the years, like the Classic started out, and I'll let you, I want to hear the story from you about how we got there, but it's kind of changed positions in the price list through the years, and it just baffled everybody to why, right? So, of course, there's some behind the headstock stories about the Les Paul Classic, but I think the origin story is probably the most important part of the story. Like, how did we even come up with the Classic?
Well, it came out first in '87, was when they first released those things. And I think Henry was really looking for something that was, be something he could make at the factory that could be priced, competitively, like a little higher, but not custom shop level, but also try to address some of the complaints that people had about Les Pauls. All right, so it got chambered.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first kind of controversy, if you will. And I think sparked a lot of the Tonewood myth wars about solid body guitars. And because people would be like, well, it sounds different because it's chambered. Okay, if you have dog ears, it sounds different, but I didn't think it did. And it got to what it was starting to do was cause confusion in the marketplace also, because the dealers who were buying into the new custom shop line,
right,
and everything were like, well, why should I be stocking these 59 and 60 reissues when you've got the Les Paul Classic 60 over here, which isn't really a reissue. And so there was some confusion about that. The original ones up until 93 actually said Les Paul model on the headstock.
Right.
So that changed right when I started there to Les Paul Classic on the headstock.
Now,
Differentiated the dealers.
Is there a story why that changed?
That was the story. Literally, like the dealers were saying, people come in and they can't see the difference between just looking at it between that Les Paul Classic and that 59 reissue that's $3,000 more. So, what am I supposed to tell?
Really wasn't running back then. They weren't making those.
No, it was brand new.
Later. Yeah, the custom shop
brand new.
Didn't come into play until way later than that, right? Because
94.
Yeah, 94, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the classic was around in the
87,
88, 89, right? So they were making the reissue, right? They were making a Les Paul reissue,
right?
Which was supposed to be the 59, but it really wasn't. It had
it wasn't.
Binding. Right. It had a lot of stuff that was just not right. It had the headstock with the not pushing bushings and all that sort of thing. So the reissue wasn't really a true 59 reissue like they evolved to.
89 catalog. Well, might have been around 90 because look, the SG90, but I think this came out in 89 because the classic is not here.
Well, I've got an 88 catalog somewhere here.
So, I have some other information. So let me.
Okay.
I found an old letter from Ben Rhodes talking about the 1989 price list.
All right.
Isn't that great? All right. So here's the 89 price list. Back then, we were making the LPR. That was the reissue.
Right.
Okay. Now, it says classic after here, but that was the case, right? So you had like the protector cases, and here's the classic case.
Right.
So that LPR, the prehistoric, antique cherry, heritage cherry sunburst, and I have the color codes down here. HD, whatever that was. Where's H?
Heritage dark sunburst.
Heritage dark sunburst. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Oh, I knew all them by heart.
Oh, that's funny.
Too.
Still remember them,
I was the poor slob who had to update the price list every 6 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So then this is like a 92 version, or maybe a little later, but this is a little later. Here's the Smartwood.
A little later.
Classic is here, the double cuts. Yeah, this is more like 96,
that's
maybe.
Freely,
6,
right?
90, 97, maybe that.
Yeah, you had the Jimmy Page and the Ace Frehley, but there was the classic.
Yeah, I worked on that Page guitar. I was around when that came out.
Now, since we were talking about the historic collection, I'm going to throw this in here real quick, and then I'm going to get back to some origin story questions. I was told that there is a rumor that this guitar was actually a Les Paul Classic Premium Plus.
Was.
That's awesome.
That happened a couple of times too. For instance, we introduced the Les Paul Standard Plus when I was there. It was the first time the Standard had been offered with a Flame Plus top. We had to send them to California to have, and I hired Henry Diltz to take photos of Joe and from the Eagles. So it was
Joe Walsh and Don Felder, right?
Don Felder, to do these life-size stand-ups. And they had hired this woman in marketing who was not very competent. And I told her, because I was about to leave that division and go start that whole internet thing. And I said, look, when you get these photos back, the Standard says model on the headstock. Now, looking at a Les Paul Classic from the front, you're not going to know if it's a Standard or not. I'm going to have one dressed up like a Standard, covered pickups, the hardware. It's going to look like a Standard, everything except for the headstock's going to say Classic. So you're going to have that photoshopped out and change to model, and then make the cardboard stand-ups. And she didn't do it. So they spent like $20,000 on these cardboard stand-ups and had to throw them away because they shipped in, and I happened to be in the factory, and when they came in and I saw them, I went, "You didn't change the headstock."
That's great. I have one of those stand-ups.
Do you?
Yep, it's in my garage. It never
Go
been
look
used.
at it closely now and see if it says model or classic.
I gotta break it out, take a picture of it, and I'll post this later in this video. That's awesome.
Yeah, because that was one of the things where it was like, well, we had to dress up the classic to look like a standard.
A standard, kind of like
and that's
this old
kind of what
story,
happened
right?
there, because the top was beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Right?
Everybody wanted that top from then on.
Some of that Mike Hill wood. That was
there you go.
That was crazy days, man. The flame war was starting between PRS and Gibson, right? It was insane.
When we put a flame maple guitar on the string package that had like a killer top. I mean, the package of Les Paul strings, the Gibson strings, had a killer top on it. We heard about that for years. I want one like the string pack. Yeah, just like this. I'm like, dude, these are going. Talk to Mother Nature.
Yeah, they didn't. People don't understand they're diseased. You know, they got hit by lightning, and they're not healthy trees. That's why they're flame. They're not DNA. You know, you don't just grow a flame maple. You know,
they used to throw out bird's eye maple because they thought it was bad wood. You know, use it to make pallets with and all kinds of different
shelves.
Stuff, you know? And now it's
Mike Hill, it would tell me, he'd say, like, I'll just get these calls from these loggers because they know that's what I'm looking for. And they might be 200 miles away, but they'll be like, hey, we got some of that trees you're looking for. And I'll drive up there with my brother and cut him down and get it. You know, like, all right.
They did. They had the best wood, those guys.
It was a very organic, cool experience in time. The factory was different. The people were different. It was, you know, we got to have a little more fun, I think, back then.
It was definitely looser, no doubt.
Yeah, it was definitely looser.
Hey, Mike, just I want to get back to the classic specs, right? How it all came together. So, would you say that came from Henry, the idea for the classic? Okay, it wasn't like a JT thing that he brought it to Henry. That just started with him.
No, that was that. Every guitar starts with Henry with a dollar sign in his eyes, you know, and how much money he can make and get people out of. And I remember, especially like the classics got to be pretty spendy. They got to be pretty expensive in the mid '90s. You know, this guitar in the mid '90s, I think the price was about $1,900.
So
a lot.
I have some numbers here. So, it's a little bit different than some of the dates you were as far as what the system said. The earliest shipments on record were in December of '89, and it hit the price list on January 1st, 1990.
That sounds right.
So it launched as the base model in 4 finishes: Bullion Gold, Heritage Cherry Sunburst, Vintage Sunburst, and Honeyburst.
Yep.
It was $1,529 retail. There was an option with a Vibrola for $1,709. Okay, but the standard was $1,399. It was $200 less, right?
Yeah.
So then the Classic Plus comes in in September of '91, red, amber, and purple, and then the Classic Premium Plus came in on April 1st, '93.
Yep.
With the Classic Bird's Eye and Premium Bird's Eye. That came in '94, but then the Classic Plus falls off the list in '96, but returns in '99. I remember when that happened. And the Premium Plus fell off in '98. So part of the history of the Classic that I remember, but before I forget to ask you this, Mike, how did the Classic end up with ceramic pickups?
Again, another thing to differentiate it from the standard
reissues
and the reissues.
Gotcha.
Right. So it was a really complicated thing to try to explain to people. I would just say, look, it's just a great Les Paul. Just you know,
seriously,
just play it and enjoy it.
The neck was the feature.
It was the slim taper neck.
Correct.
Right. That was
that was really the selling point, because I like a fat neck, but my classic, Dennis Robbins actually bought me this, and I got to really like the slim taper neck, and I never thought that I would like it that much, but it's very comfortable to play. And I've always been kind of a baseball bat guy,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Hey, and Mike, is there any story behind the green inlays?
And machine heads. I think they were trying to be a little more historically accurate with them. Again, we're going back 30 years, so my brain's a little fuzzy in all this, but I can remember vividly the two ladies who did the inlays because they had tall beehive church lady hair.
Dimple and Vicky.
They're still there.
Yeah,
they
sure.
can't. They can't be there still. They must be 100.
No, Dimple's passed away, but there was a lady named Vicky Hopper that worked there, and she might have just retired a few years ago. So, but yeah, they did it for years.
Ever. Yeah,
they just sat there, gossiped all day, and put in inlays and put the black stuff on top. That was their. They were a hoot to walk through during the tour, because I was always the guy that had to take people through.
It was like down her back.
It must have been
so long, and it took forever to put it up in that big old beehive. But she came to work every day in that thing, man. Yeah,
he was closer to God. All hair, man. That was one of the coolest things. Again, whenever someone had to do a plant tour, they were like, Mike, take this person through the plant because nobody wanted to do it. And I loved it.
Me too.
I was Willy Wonka every time.
Yep.
And I walked them straight back to the wood room so that we would start where it started and all the way up through final. And it was a different layout. It was a lot different before the flood, I guess. And I loved going back there and grabbing a billet with a guest that was coming through and grabbing that denatured alcohol and showing them how we grade the wood. This is going to be a plus top. This is going to be a premium plus. This piece of wood Rick Gimbar is going to come steal in about a week as soon as he finds out about it. This wood has worm tracks in it, so it's going to be painted black.
Right.
It's going to be a black guitar. And I remember being in the factory the first time I actually realized on my first tour through day one, where I was like, you mean the standard and the studio are the exact same guitar, but without the binding? Because I didn't realize that at the time, and I was like, what? And so that was fascinating to me to learn that, like embryos that could end up male or female at some stage, the guitars kind of started that way in some respects too, right?
Yeah.
So there are all those little kind of things inside baseball stuff, the behind the headstock stuff you're talking about that as guitar nerds, we just love, right? We just love, and it made us put up with so much crap to be there because we love those products so much. These are wizard tools. These are like magic wands,
Yeah, I fought for a lot of those points, being in quality control was a battle, to deal with people who wanted to go home, that night or do it right, wait until we got it right. And a lot of times we waited till we got it right because we had to, because we wouldn't let it on our watch. I didn't want to be the quality control guy that ruined Gibson, so we really brought it back in the 90s.
There were a couple there before you made your way back from California that could have done it. Because again, I was the whipping boy, so whatever needed to be done for marketing, I got sent out in the field to do, which meant like, we're sending this guitar to Guitar Player to review. Go grab it. Don't just tell them to ship one from the warehouse. You go get it. You go look at it. You make sure there's no cracked fret ends. You make sure the frets are right. You make sure they're level. You play it. Because that was the thing that would fascinate me, is that like I was a fanboy, right? But then Henry would hire these people who didn't come from the industry at all.
Oh no, they had a guy when I first got back to the plant in '96. They had a guy that worked for Harley Davidson, and he was like the kind of they had doing this thing TQM, Total Quality Management, kind of Dr. Deming influence and all that, statistical process control, and they were like, they had a plan when I first got back there. They were like looking at 10% of the production and then calling it good. So they would have some guy that goes back there and he plays like 15 guitars And if he didn't find no problems, the rest of the night went. They just shipped them.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, what are you doing? These are not screws coming out of a machine.
No.
Right.
One is a piece of artwork.
Or handlebars.
Yeah. That way. Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Right.
It's not stamped out of a mold or something where every one of them's perfect. These are all made by hand.
Back then, before the Plek, before the Plek,
yeah.
you really did have to play a bunch of them to find the one that felt right.
Sure,
and I swear now they all feel the same. You literally can choose them by appointments and color with the Plekking.
It's made a lot of difference for sure.
That made a huge difference. But man,
we were up too, right? It took away some bottlenecks that we had.
And the fretwork was a big bottleneck. Believe me, that was a nightmare.
How do you train somebody who's never played guitar how to polish the frets?
Yeah.
You got entry level workers coming in, and here, take this file and rake across the frets until it goes this far, and then stop. They didn't know what they were looking for. They had to be trained and worked with. So it was a battle back then. But the Plek machine really changed.
There was a lot of players though back in that factory that that were musicians and cared, really cared.
Those
and
guys
I loved that.
Final assembly, those were the final assembly guys. You could walk by any one of those guys and they'd be playing some crazy stuff on the guitar, testing it out. And they were all great players, These guys were great, And so it was a different time. I'm sure they got a lot of people that are still like that. Still a lot of people that work there, that care about what they're doing. A lot of them I still know. A lot of them are still there. So,
which is amazing considering how old we are and how long ago that was. But I mean, some of the best builders I've ever met in my life, from JT Riboloff to Keith Medley to of course Mike Volz. Those three are like the pinnacle. If you ask me, some of the finest guitar builders I've ever known,
and all
those three guys' names.
And all three of them were great teachers too.
Right, and nice people, great people, and still dear friends of mine. And JT was the guy that we were pushing the Nighthawks, and Elliot Easton wanted one, but we didn't make a left-handed one. And JT was left-handed. I'm left-handed, but I play right. And so we need to get one to Elliot. So I went over to JT, and we were sitting in his little room smoking Marlboros, and because you could smoke in his little lab. We'd sit in there chain smoke, and he handmade from scratch a left-handed Nighthawk.
That's awesome.
For Elliot,
some of those things were, like the mounting ring
made himself one.
Landed on the Nighthawk, so he'd have to make a special mounting ring to go left-handed, so it slanted correctly, and little things you never really think of. At some points, guitars are ambidextrous. The neck is the same regardless, left or right. You just got to flip the side dots over onto the other side. But like parts like the electronics and all that have to be totally rewired differently. And that guitar, JT had done some really cool electronic wiring, make it sound like it did. It was parallel and phasing and all kinds.
Well, he did the M3 electronics, right?
He did. Yeah. The Nighthawk was, never going to be in production as a lefty. We weren't selling enough to justify that, so I couldn't even figure out why we were making one for Elliot, other than he was cool and we wanted to give him one. And I had sent him out to do clinics in a bunch of cities, but the poor guy Gibson wasn't good to. They would have to front their own expenses and get paid. It was just not. It was a different era, guys.
Later on.
Yeah, we took care of Elliot. We did. Yeah, we sent him some really, really good stuff. Yeah.
Because when I was there, man, he had just had a new baby, and I was like, I can send you to 10 cities. I can give you like $1,000 a city, but we didn't have a company credit card to book the hotel room for him. We had to try to use that travel agency, and they didn't always get it right with direct billing. I remember him calling me from one hotel lobby going, well, my room's not taken care of. And I was like, oh,
jeez.
It was, man, it was a different time. But hey, I want to show you guys my classic, because it's,
show me that.
This one's kind of fun. This is originally a dark wine burst.
Okay.
All right. They didn't have any cherry sunburst, which is what I wanted. And Dennis Robbins kept saying, I'm going to buy you a Les Paul. You need to go pick one out before I just pick one out for you. And I looked at the inventory. I was like, Dennis, it's going to be 6-8 months before we have a cherry sunburst that I can get. He goes, get you one that you like. Just go find you one. So I was like, okay. I saw this dark wine burst. So, okay, yeah, I'll get that. Thank you. And he bought me this guitar. We were still good. He was best man at my wedding 6 years ago. We've been friends before Gibson and still. And he's like, how can you be working at Gibson and not own a Les Paul? And I'm like, I can't afford one on what they pay me. He goes, I'll fix that. So I took this to George St. Pierre. Do you remember George?
Oh, yeah.
In repair.
Yeah.
Tie-dye guitar guy. And I said, George, I really wanted it in cherry sunburst. He goes, oh, I'll just zip the top for you. Tell you what, get me one of those denim jackets that you had made, and I'll do it for you. And that's back when we were allowed to bring our guitars in and work on them on after hours or on the weekend or whatever. And that all got killed by that idiot from the Air Force that they hired. But so he sat there and zipped the top. He heated the top in front of me. And literally, people don't realize this. You guys know, but most people don't know that you could pull that finish off like a sticker.
Peel it, yeah.
Peels right off, right down to the raw wood. I watched and I was like, there's no color left? How does that work? What? Because I thought it was going to be pink. He goes, no, watch this. He had this little heat thing and he just pulled it off like it was a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
And then I stood there, and of course we left the back a little darker. We didn't change any of that. And I stood there. So I want you to paint it just like Dwayne Allman's, just barely around the side. Right. I stood there and watched him paint it. The double cream pickups, these are actually Seymour Duncan's. Seymour's not allowed to sell them in cream.
Correct.
Because DiMarzio has a trademark, but he could make them and give them to me.
Or he put covers on them first.
Yeah. Well, he just sent them to me that way in a box, no receipt. They didn't sell them. These were brown that they shipped with, but I wanted cream. So the lady that made these in the back, she's like, get me one of them denim jackets and I'll make you some. So,
that's great.
You remember Barb? Barbara. Yeah. So Barb got a jacket and I got some back plates. And then there was a custom shop. You can't really see it here, but there's a custom shop decal in my drawer. And so I said, hey, George, while we're in here, put that on there for me. And here's one of the coins from the 100th anniversary guitars.
Yeah, I thought I recognized that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
The Orville coin, and that was the sample
somewhere. Yeah.
So I said, put that on. We're going to just really make some guitar historian 50 years from now absolutely scratch their head about this crazy thing. And it's been signed by Les twice. The first was in silver paint pen, and it was a beautiful signature. And of course, it came off. So I had him sign it again in Sharpie, and it's a horrible signature. But that's how it was with Les. Either it was a great signature, or it was a bad signature, depending on how his hand was feeling.
And it differed from if he sat down and did 20 pick guards. They looked. You had 20 different signatures.
Yeah,
they all look different, right?
The first one Jimmy Archie sent me from New York, right after I started working there. Jimmy was in entertainment relations in New York, remember? And he's like, I'll send you a pick guard. I'm going to go see Les tonight. So he sends me one, and I called him. I said, what is this? Did your kid write this? Is this a joke? Are you being funny?
Jimmy wrote it on the subway on the way home.
That's what it looked like. And he goes, nah, that's his signature. That's what it. Sometimes it looks like that, That's
funny.
So this has been played. I've played this on stage in front of 60,000 people at the Haight Street Fair with Merle Saunders several years in a row, and the Fillmore and all kinds of great places. This was my main acts for many years, and I love it. It's a screaming beast, man. And the first time it went through the airport metal X-ray, I got to see
the holes.
The holes.
Yeah,
I was like so fascinated because you could see the Swiss cheese effect on it.
Yep, that's great.
And it really only took about maybe 2 pounds out of them.
I don't even think that.
It just depends. I don't even think it was that much. Sometimes
it was ounces.
This thing's about 8 pounds.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good.
That's not normal.
And my traditional, which I just call I lost my earbud. my traditional must weigh about 11. You know,
Yeah,
Wow.
that has no
Yeah.
weight relief in those.
no
Right?
weight relief. It's heavy, but I never liked the classic thing being on it, so I took that stupid pick guard off that said classic 1960. That's another
Yep.
thing we added
Yep.
to make them look different in the stores, along with changing the headstock to say classic. So we put it on the truss rod cover and the decal and
That's
on the
right.
pick guard
Yep.
to try to help the public know the difference between the custom shop stuff that literally, you said it, Frank, that was 94. That's when Gembar was really
Yeah.
kicking stuff off down the street. And
Yeah, they were
You know.
cranking then. Yeah.
that was,
But the funny thing was, we had a hard time. I started off at Gibson in customer service in '96, right? But from then even on, talking to dealers when I was in the sales department was, what's the difference? Why is the price so different? And it was tough trying to explain. There's really not that much of a difference if you think about it. If you looked at the bombs, they weren't really different. But what happened over time, which the public doesn't really know about, is, the classic started out more expensive than the standard, and all of a sudden it was cheaper than a standard, and kind of stayed at that rate for a long time. What I remember happening, like in the late 90s, for some reason, Henry hated the classic. I went through 2 phases of him wanting to get rid of it. So at one point when Fred was running the plant, Henry said, get rid of the classic, but fill all the back orders, and then it's done. You build the last one and it's done. Now, for us on the inside, the classic was a cheaper standard, so you sold the shit out of it, right? Dealers loved it. It was a cheaper standard because dealers always wanted a cheaper version of something that sold well, right? So Fred told us, keep selling them. Don't ever run out of back orders on the classic, and it won't be discontinued. So we had a couple years run of selling the classic, and I don't think it stayed on the price list, but it never went through price increases because it was off the list.
that's hard to fathom.
Right. As other guitars got more expensive, the classic stayed right where it was.
Because they were getting back ordered price. Right?
Oh,
the old
yeah.
price.
Yeah.
You're getting the old price.
Or, it sat on the price list and just didn't go through the price change for whatever reasons. But there might be a different reason of why it fell from being above a standard to below a standard early, like in, when did it switch? 93 maybe? But I know in the late 90s, it was, Henry wanted to kill it. And then in about 2006 or 7, we did a line review over at the new corporate office that was over off Murfreesboro Road. And they had like a big hall, like it was almost like a performance hall or training hall. And we had to bring over one of everything over there. Did you ever have to go through this, Mike? You had to do the whole line review.
Not at that place.
Okay, so we had to have pieces of paper for every guitar, what you sold in the past year, what was its MSRP, map, how many you sold, so you can really review everything. And we ran out of stands. We had one of everything over there, in every color, too. And he comes and walks in the room, and we're going through the line, okay. And I was brand manager at this point, and he just points at the classic. He goes, "Who came up with that?" And I said, "Henry, that's been in the line since like 1990." He goes, "1990? Get rid of it." Actually, he doubted that it was from 1990. He went upstairs to his office and got some catalogs, came back down, and didn't address it again. But he did not like the classic for some reason after a while. That's why I asked you in the beginning, was that his idea? Because after a while, he seemed to just hate it.
Look, when I was there, it was the darling guitar. It was our best seller. In fact, we were only making plain top wine or cherry sunburst, honeyburst, and black standards, white, red, and black studios, which we could not build fast enough, and pushing Nighthawks. And it was all about flame tops. And that's why the Nighthawk customs and standards had the flame. And we were pushing the premium pluses. we were pushing them hard, and the plus tops for the people who couldn't afford the premium pluses. And that was around, again, as I said, the time the custom shop was really starting up, and we were starting to get pushed back because that stuff's coming out. And the dealers are looking at these going, well, these look just like them or just as good. Why should I buy that? And that's when it started getting confusing. And if I had to guess his psychology, I would say he hated them because they looked just like the expensive custom shop stuff.
Do you think the custom shop was trying to kill it at every step?
Absolutely.
It wouldn't have been their first time, right?
Oh, no. Trust me, man. Rick did a lot of that stuff. I have the very last white Les Paul custom made at the factory.
At USA?
Yeah.
Frank and I have talked about that a few times. In fact, one of our first episodes was when they took the gold top away from us.
We couldn't do
it. We sold the hell out of gold tops back then.
Yeah.
We had a gold top classic as well. But that was and I remember asking Henry, because remember, as I said earlier, the prices at the time on the classic went crazy. Every 6 months we redid the price sheet. And I remember I have just vivid memories of opening. We did them in Microsoft Excel. I did them in Microsoft Excel.
I did them in Excel when I was there.
Frank
did them in Excel.
You probably used my templates, fellas.
Probably.
Handed down. and so I remember asking Henry one time, I said, Henry, how are we able to say that this guitar is now suddenly $400 more? And how does the public, so I'm asking genuinely, like, and the one's a guitar player, like, I don't understand the price increase because the cost didn't go up for all that. But Henry had a growth edict of like 25% a year on it.
Yeah,
it was
30.
Something crazy, 30%.
Yeah.
And I said, how do we justify this? He goes, Mike, we're selling diamonds. We're like the De Beers family. They're worth whatever we say they're worth.
Yeah, that was his line. You tell people what they're worth.
That's what he said. He said the diamond's just a rock. It's not worth anything until the De Beers people told people it was worth a lot of money and your girl's going to like it. And again, you called out the price list earlier from what year was that you said it was 17?
Oh, that was 1990. Yeah, when the classic first came out, it was $15.29. The standard was $13.99.
All right, well, by the time I left there, those classics were more like 19 and 2000 or 2100.
Oh, the premium pluses were up there.
Premiums were like $2,500.
Hey, you know what's funny too? There was a long period where dealers loved to sell classic pluses as premium pluses.
Yeah.
Because sometimes those pluses were pretty damn close to a premium plus.
A coin flip. Yeah, it was a coin flip,
Yeah, but the dealer was paying a lot less for it, for selling it for the higher end. We used to get calls all the time. We told people, take out your rhythm pickup, and what does it say? And it would say LPCP, not LPPP. And they'd be like, no, he sold that to me as a premium plus. I'm sorry, man. Go back and talk to your dealer.
That happened. Now, there were a couple of other very memorable incidents when I was there. One was the Big Bang. I was working, and the paint booth basically exploded. And fire. All of the water sprinklers in the entire factory went off.
Oh my gosh!
Flooded the place. I stayed there, and I'm in marketing. Right, I'm not in the factory, but I'm in marketing.
You're up front. That's where I sat.
But I'm one of these guys. I'm part of the. I'm not like the guy in the tie and the golden tower. So I literally stayed there till sunrise, squeegeeing and helping out in the factory, and come in like at 1 the next day. And Richard's all like, "Why are you so late? What?" I said, "Well, I was here all night squeegeeing in the factory. Why were you helping with that? That's not." I'm like, "Richard, what do you mean? If they're not making guitars, I'm not."
It's our house.
Yeah,
it's our house.
Yeah, of course I'm going to be out there. And then we had T-shirts made, the 100th anniversary shirts. And on the back printed, I survived the Big Bang.
Oh, my God.
I still have one of those along with my CompuServe 100th anniversary shirts. So that was pretty memorable. And then, but the guys, I'll tell you, they were good. They were overall, the 90s era that I was there. I don't have any regrets about the work, about the product, about the love, the people. It was a good time to be there. and we made some really great guitars. And that era was really important to establishing the comeback of Gibson in the marketplace. Because I mean, I had dealers that I'd known personally before I ever got to Gibson's. I'd done business with all over the Southeast from touring, that I knew in their stores, who would say, "Yeah, we're not carrying stuff. The quality's really bad." And I go, "No, the quality's really good. It's really good." And see some of these stores turn around and turn into dealers.
They came back.
And they came back because I could give in some of the quality was good, but then they had to deal with the bureaucracy and the price increases and the annual qualification to be a dealer, which was a stack of paper that thick.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it was
all
just
the red tape. Yeah.
It was just, you had to buy into every division's line.
Right. You were buying, right.
You had to be a full line dealer.
You got to buy drum sets.
Right. There were some crazy things going on back then in that era. But overall, man, I mean, I feel good about it. I mean, I helped with the first Jimmy Page model. In fact, they sent the specs, right? John Lionel Ward was Jimmy's guitar tech. Sent the specs, and I took them back to Lynn Matthews. Remember Lynn? In engineering back there in the back, up in the top of the factory. And she made sure that those guitars, those necks, were cut to the millimeter. I mean, centimeter, just the perfect to those specs. Have this prototype built, FedEx it over to England, and I get a call. I just walked in the office, 8:30 in the morning, England calling, and John Ward, Lionel, he says, "So did you get the specs and ignore them, or are you just incompetent?" I said, hold on. And I'm in a panic, and I run through the factory, up to Lynn's office, bust in her door, pick up the extension with him on the phone. Lynn, "Now, Lionel, I made this exactly to what you said." And she read the thing off, and I'm standing there just pissing myself. And he goes, "Oh, you know what? I think I measured the wrong guitar." What? You measured the wrong
number
guitar.
2, not number 1?
Yeah. And you just about gave me a heart attack. I thought I'm visions of getting fired. It was absolutely insane. So those were the little kind of je ne sais quoi that happened working at that place, and it could happen any day. You never knew
what was going to come out at you any given day, right?
Any given day, And so, to be part of that was insane. And it took a couple of years before the first Page model that came out, which Jimmy had a hand in. He didn't really like that much. I took him the prototype in Memphis at the Pyramid when Page and Plant were playing. And I'm backstage in his dressing room, and he picks it up. He looks at it, he goes, "Oh, all right, looks pretty good. I'll let you know what I think in a couple of weeks." I was under orders to bring that damn guitar back after the show. I said, "Jimmy, okay, fanboy off. Now I'm just talking to you man to man.
Right.
I got 2 little children at home. And I'm not going to tell you can't take this guitar with you, but you need to understand I could be fired. So here's what I have to come back with. You have to tell me when I'm getting it back, what city on this tour I can send a rep to pick it up. You can do that. I can leave this here. You can check it out in the time you want, and I'm not going to get fired." So we decided on New Orleans, and I sent Mike Noshel, who was the Gulf Coast rep. Yeah. Remember Mike?
Yeah.
Over to pick it up in New Orleans. And for that 2 weeks, man, I was absolutely panicked until that guitar came back. And the other funnest probably part of being over there for me, again, working with the artist was fun. Not because I was a star, glommer, but it was just fun, man. When you got to know them, and as you guys know, most of the time you find out they were just guitar geeks like us, and they really were into this, and they just happened to get famous or whatever. But you got them down to talking about the gear, man. They loved that. There he is. I'll finish this story real quick on Little Milton.
Hey, sorry about that. the power went out at my house. It's really weird.
Oh, dude, that happened here this morning, and it completely hosed one of my firewall. I had to rebuild it. No,
yeah, my router had to reset and all that crap. All right.
So little Milton calls me, and he says, "Hey, Mike, I'm going to be on the Conan O'Brien show, and I'm going to be the last act on, and I want some couch time, and I don't look like I'm going to get any couch time." I'm not even sure what he's talking about. He's like, at the end, like they have the musician play, and then they cut to a commercial, come back, and the show's over. I want some couch time. If you can get me a guitar to give to Conan, I can get some couch time. So I got to go and explain to Henry and Richard, I need a 335 to give Conan O'Brien. And they said, all right, we're going to do this, but make sure he says Gibson. I'm like, oh, I'm sweating. Again, I'm a kid. All right, I'm a kid. I'm 28 years old, 27 years old. I take everything so seriously, take my job so seriously. And I send him the guitar. I also have a guitar, Les Paul bass and plus top standard, going to Simple Minds because they're ostensibly playing them on the Tonight Show. Same night. So I remember watching the TV, and Little Milton comes on Conan, does his thing, commercial comes back from all during the commercial, I'm just sweating bullets, man. Commercial comes back, and I see Milton sitting on the couch. I'm like, oh, thank God. And he goes, yeah, I got something for you. And he pulls out the 335, and Conan grabs it and goes, wow, it's a 335. It's a Gibson. It's a Gibson, just like that to the camera. And I'm just laughing. I'm going, oh, thank you. Thank you, Milton. You saved my job. I flipped the channel over to the Tonight Show just as Simple Minds come on, and they're both playing the Les Paul bass and Les Paul standard plus I'd sent. Like, this day could have gone a lot different the next day. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I could have come in not a hero. Instead, I come in with like millions of impressions. That's what we got. An impressions thing. How many impressions did we get for that?
Oh yeah.
But anyway, guys, this was a lot of fun. We could talk for freaking hours because we're guitar players. We freaking love the product. We love the lore, the history. Those are the things that kept us there. They're the things that bind our friendships today, right?
Yep. True. Listen, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on and joining Frank and I. See, we have a ton of fun when we do this, right? This is really cool. So we really appreciate that.
I'm, you can see, look, there's 80 guitars in here, and half of them are Gibsons. And there's a reason for that. They're great.
Yeah, look behind me.
Yeah, right.
Same boat.
I've got a hoard. I call this my 401k collection. Yeah. I ain't got no money in the bank, but when I get old enough, I'll start selling one every month the rest of my life, and that'll be my pension, right? Cool. But I love these things. I love the people I met there, and I'm really thrilled you asked me to come on and do this because you try to get me to not talk about guitars, especially my Gibson fetish, and that's. I've got 2 signature model guitars of my own now, but I still love my Gibsons.
Yep,
well, thanks,
that's
Mike.
awesome.
And it's good to see you again, too.
Yeah, it's been a minute, Frank. I don't think I've seen you since like a summer NAMM or something.
Yeah, it's been a while. A while.
That was right toward the end of all of that. So
I left in 2015, so yeah, it's been 10
would have been
years.
Like Yeah, it would have been like 2014 or something. I remember seeing you and Spalding and Brian Vance, and we were all kind of. I remember that.
They all went to Diodario.
Yeah,
I was talking to Vance this week.
Like I said, he's one of those great guys.
He's one of us.
I saw a little thing from NAMM on Martin guitar, and it was Fred Green.
Oh yeah,
like, hey, there's Fred.
Yeah,
right. So, hey, some of the best people in the business came through there when we did. So good to be in that foxhole with you, fellas.
Yep. Same
here. We shared the foxhole.
Thanks for everything.
Thanks,
you got
Mike.
it. Holler anytime. Love to talk again.
All right, man. All right. We'll have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Go Behind the Headstock with Kevin and Frank, 2 ex-Gibson employees talking about guitars and the guitar industry with an inside perspective.